My sister mocked me, "Where's your husband and kids?" "Oh, right, you don't." My parents laughed, so I said, "Where's your money?" "Oh, right, I've been supporting you until today." The table went silent, and that was the night everything changed. It was supposed to be a happy family dinner, but it turned into the night they ripped my heart out. And the same night I decided to take my life back. My name is Arthur, and I run a small, cozy coffee shop in a quiet part of the city. People tell me their stories here. Some are happy, some are sad. But the story a young woman named Maya told me a few years ago, it's one I'll never forget. She came in looking lost, but there was a fire in her eyes. She sat right where you are, sipped her black coffee, and said, "Arthur, do you want to know about the night I broke my family to save myself?" This is her story. My name is Maya. For 32 years, I believed family was everything. I worked myself to the bone, not for fancy clothes or a flashy car, but to make sure my parents were comfortable. My dad's social security wasn't much, and my mom never worked. My older sister, Chloe, she was the pretty one, the one who married her high school sweetheart right after graduation and had two perfect kids. I was the reliable one, the plain one, the one who stayed late at the office while they all went to family barbecues. I didn't mind, or at least I told myself I didn't. I was helping. That all ended on my parents' 35th wedding anniversary. I had paid for a fancy dinner at a nice steakhouse. I had even bought my mom a beautiful necklace. We were all sitting there. The food was great, and for a moment, I felt like I was part of the picture. Then Chloe, with her sweet, fake smile, looked right at me. "So, Maya," she said, her voice like honey but her eyes like knives. "We were just talking. When are you going to settle down? Where's your husband and kids?" She paused, letting the question hang in the air. My parents chuckled. "Oh, right," Chloe continued, smirking. "You don't have any." My dad let out a loud laugh, and my mom shook her head with a pitying smile. It was a joke to them. My entire life, my choices, my struggles were just a punchline. The necklace I'd just given my mom felt heavy and cold around her neck. In that moment, something inside me, something that had been bending for years, the sound of their laughter felt like physical slaps. I looked at their faces. My sister smug, my parents amused, and I saw them clearly for the first time. They weren't just teasing. They genuinely believed I was less than them because I wasn't married, because I didn't have children. They were sitting in a restaurant I paid for, eating food I bought, while they laughed at my life. The heat rushed to my face, but my hands turned ice cold. I put my fork down slowly, the clink against the plate sounding incredibly loud in my head. I took a slow breath, my heart hammering against my ribs. This was it. This was the line. I had spent my entire adulthood trying to earn their love, their approval, by being the provider, and they had no respect for it. They saw my money as their right and me as their failure. I looked at my sister, then at my parents. My voice came out quiet, but steady. It didn't sound like my voice. It was stronger. "That's a good question, Chloe," I said. Everyone stopped laughing. They weren't used to me talking back. It reminds me of another question. I turned to my parents. "Mom, Dad, where's your money?" I let the silence sit for just a second, watching the confusion on their faces. "Oh, right," I said, mirroring Chloe's mocking tone perfectly. "I've been supporting you." Until today, the words hung in the air, sharp and final. You could have heard a pin drop. The entire world seemed to freeze at that table. My dad's smile vanished, replaced by utter shock. My mom's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes wide. Chloe just stared, her jaw slightly open, like a fish out of water. The clatter of dishes from the kitchen, and the murmur of other conversations suddenly seemed miles away. We were trapped in our own little bubble of shock. My father was the first to find his voice. What did you just say, young lady?" He sputtered, his face starting to turn red. I didn't break eye contact. You heard me, Dad. The money stops. Now, today, my mother started to cry. Soft, pathetic little sobs. Maya, honey, you don't mean that. It's your duty to help your family. Chloe finally found her voice, shrill and angry. You can't do that. What about their mortgage? The car payment? I looked at her, feeling a calmness I hadn't felt in years. That sounds like a you problem. Chloe, you're the one with the perfect family. You can support them. I stood up, placing my napkin neatly on the table. I looked at the three of them, their faces a mixture of horror and disbelief. Without another word, I turned and walked out of the restaurant. I didn't look back. I walked to my used, but fully paid off car, got in, and drove away. My hands were shaking, but my mind was clearer than it had ever been. The war had begun. I had just gotten home and poured myself a very large glass of wine when my phone started ringing. I didn't need to look to know who it was. I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, it rang again and again. After the fifth call, I picked up. It was my mother, her voice thick with tears. Maya, you come back here right now and apologize to your father and sister. How could you embarrass us like that in public? I took a slow sip of my wine. I embarrass you. That's interesting. You know what I mean. She cried. Your father is furious. You can't just cut us off. We're your parents. And I'm your daughter, I said calmly. The one you laughed at for not having a husband. The one you don't respect. So, no, I won't be apologizing. And the bank is closed. I heard my father yelling in the background. You tell her she's cut off from this family. She's no daughter of mine. I felt a sharp pang in my chest, but I pushed it down. Tell him thank you, I said to my mother. That makes this much easier. I ended the call and put my phone on silent. I knew it was just the beginning. The guilt was already trying to creep in, that old, familiar feeling. But for the first time, anger was louder. I finished my wine and made a plan. Step 1. Change my bank accounts tomorrow. The next morning, I went to the bank first thing. I closed the joint account I had foolishly opened with my parents years ago to make bill paying easier. I moved every cent into a new private account at a completely different bank. Then I sat down with my laptop and a notepad. I listed all my bills, my rent, my car insurance, my utilities, my groceries. Then I listed all the bills I had been paying for my parents, their mortgage, their car note, their insurance, their credit cards, and a generous monthly cash allowance. The difference was staggering. I was spending almost twice as much on them as I was on myself. I had been living a small, frugal life so they could live a comfortable one. And they thanked me by mocking me. Looking at the numbers in black and white was like a slap in the face. The amount of money I would now have for myself was life-changing. I could finally start saving for a house. I could invest. I could take a vacation. A real one. I could buy a new dress with freedom was intoxicating. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders that I hadn't even known I was carrying. A week after the dinner, there was a pounding on my apartment door. I looked through the peephole to see Chloe, her face set in a skull. I thought about not answering, but I wanted to see what she had to say. I opened the door. What do you want, Chloe? She pushed past me into my apartment. You need to stop this nonsense, Maya. Mom and Dad are a mess. Dad's blood pressure is through the roof. Is that what you want? I crossed my arms. They seemed fine when they were laughing at me. Oh, get over it. It was a joke. You're so sensitive, she sneered, looking around my small, tidy apartment. This is about more than a joke, and you know it. It's about 32 years of being treated like the family servant. Well, if you had a family of your own, you'd understand how it works. She shot back. I almost laughed. I do have a family of my own, and I'm finally going to start taking care of. Chloe's eyes narrowed. You're being selfish. You have a responsibility, my only responsibility, I said. Walking to the door and holding it open is to myself. You can see yourself out, she stomped out, turning at the last second. You'll regret this. You're going to die alone and miserable. I closed the door softly on her words. Her words used to hurt. Now they just sounded pathetic. I later found out from a distant cousin what happened after I left. The first of the month came, and my parents' mortgage payment didn't. The bank called. Then the car company called because their lease payment bounced. Their credit cards, which I always paid off, were suddenly maxed out and accruing interest. The reality of their financial situation hit them like a ton of bricks. They had gotten so used to the river of money flowing from me that they had no savings, zero. My dad's pension and Social Security were enough for groceries and utilities, but not for the lifestyle I had been funding. They had to call Chloe in a panic. She and her husband, Mark, sat down with them and looked at the numbers. Mark, who was an accountant, was horrified. You mean you had no backup plan? You were entirely dependent on Maya? My parents had no answer. Chloe, of course, blamed me for their irresponsibility, but the truth was clear. They were adults who had made the choice to rely completely on the daughter they didn't respect. And now the free ride was over. With the extra money, I didn't go crazy. I was smart. The first thing I did was max out my 401k contribution at work. Then I opened a Roth IRA. I started an investment portfolio. It felt powerful. I was building a future for myself, a secure one that no one could take away. I also started spending a little on myself. I joined a nice gym with a yoga studio. I signed up for a French cooking class, something I'd always wanted to do. I went to the salon and got a modern, stylish haircut. I bought a few quality pieces of clothing that actually fit me well. I wasn't trying to become a new person. I was just finally allowing the person I was inside to come out. I felt lighter, happier. The constant low-grade anxiety I had lived with for years, the worrying that I wasn't doing enough for my family, was gone, replaced by a quiet, steady confidence. My parents stopped with the angry calls and started with the sad ones. My father called, his voice old and tired. Maya, your mother can't sleep. She's crying all the time. We might lose the house. Is that what you want? To make us homeless? A month ago, that would have shattered me. Now, I had a response. Dad, you've been working for over 40 years. You must have some retirement savings. There was a long silence. That's for emergencies, he mumbled. Losing your house sounds like an emergency to me, I said calmly. And Chloe and Mark are there. I'm sure you can work something out. I wasn't being cold. I was being realistic. They had options. They just didn't want to use them because it was easier to use me. I refused to be the path of least resistance any longer. I told him I loved him, but I couldn't help them financially anymore, and I ended the call. About 2 months into my new life, I was having coffee with an old college friend. Sarah, she had always been blunt and honest. I told her the whole story, expecting her to be shocked. Instead, she shook her head. Finally, she said, I've been waiting for you to see it. I was stunned. What do you mean? Maya, for years, we've all watched you kill yourself for them. You missed parties. You skipped trips. You worked 2 jobs right after college to pay off your dad's debts. And what did they ever do for you? Did they ever throw you a birthday party? Did they ever help you when your car broke down? No, they just took. I sat back, processing her words. My friends had seen it all along. They saw the dynamic. I was too blind to see because I called it love. It wasn't love. It was use. That conversation with Sarah solidified everything for me. I wasn't the villain in this story. I was the one setting myself free. I heard through the grapevine that Chloe and Mark called a family meeting, from which I was, of course, excluded. The plan they came up with was drastic. My parents would have to sell the house. The market was good, so they would make a decent profit. But it was the family home, and my mother was heartbroken. They would use the money from the sale to pay off their debts and buy a small, 2-bedroom condo. There would be no money for extras. No fancy cable package, no new clothes, no eating out. My dad would have to get a part-time job as a greeter at a hardware store to make ends meet. The life of comfortable retirement I had given them was over. They were facing the financial reality they should have planned for all along. And Chloe. She and Mark agreed to help a little, but it caused huge fights in their marriage. Mark wasn't happy about using their kids' college fund to bail out his in-laws. With my new financial freedom and mental space, I started to excel at work. I wasn't tired and stressed all the time. I could focus. I came up with a new marketing strategy that my boss loved. I was given a major project to lead. I started getting recognized. 6 months after the dinner, I was offered a promotion and a significant raise. It was ironic. The less I did for my family, the more successful I became in my own life. I used part of my first big bonus as a promoted employee to book a trip to Italy. I was going to go alone, and I was incredibly excited about it. I was living the life I wanted on my own terms. Then, life threw a curveball. My mother fell while moving a box in the new condo and broke her hip. She needed surgery and a long period of rehab. The hospital bills started piling up. My dad called me, and this time, he wasn't angry or trying to guilt me. He just sounded scared and defeated. Maya, I don't know what to do. The insurance. It doesn't cover all of this. For a moment, the old instincts kicked in. I wanted to fix it. I wanted to write a check. But I stopped myself. This was different. This was a genuine crisis, not a result of their poor planning. But I also knew that just giving money would put us right back in the old pattern. I went to the hospital. It was the first time I had seen my parents in months. They looked older, smaller. My father wouldn't meet my eyes. My mother, doped up on pain meds, started crying when she saw me. I spoke to my dad in the hallway. I will help with the medical bills, I said. He looked up, a flicker of hope in his eyes. But I continued, there are conditions. I laid them out. 1, I would pay the hospital directly. They would not see a penny of the money. 2, they would go to a financial advisor I hired to create a realistic, sustainable budget based on their actual income. They would stick to it. 3, we would start family therapy. All of us, including Chloe. I told him I was willing to help them stand back up, but I would not carry them ever again. He was quiet for a long time. Then he nodded. Okay, Maya, okay. It was the first time he had ever agreed to anything I said. The first family therapy session was a disaster. Chloe spent the entire time blaming me for all their problems. If you hadn't been so selfish, Mom wouldn't have been stressed and she wouldn't have fallen. The therapist, a calm woman named Dr. Evans, stopped her. Chloe, let's talk about why Maya's decision impacted your mother's stress levels so much. Why was the financial responsibility solely on her? That shut Chloe up. My parents sat in silence, not defending me, but not defending Chloe either. It was a start. Dr. Evans made them see how the family system was, built on me being the giver and them being the takers. It was uncomfortable, but for the first time, the truth was out in the open, spoken in a safe space. Therapy was slow and painful. We had many arguments, but slowly, very slowly, things began to shift. My father, in one private session with me, apologized. It was gruff and awkward, but he said the words, "I'm sorry, Maya, I was wrong. I took advantage of you, and I didn't appreciate you." It was a monumental moment. My mother, as she recovered, started to see how her dependence had hurt me. She began to ask me about my life, my job, my trip to Italy. They were small questions, but she had never asked them before. Chloe was the hardest nut to crack. She refused to see her part in anything. Her marriage was suffering because of the financial pressure she and Mark were under from helping my parents. The perfect life she always mocked me for not having was starting to show cracks. She had to get a part-time job herself, which she hated. She was losing her status as the golden child because now she was involved in the messy reality of our parents' lives, not just the fun grandparent part. I almost felt sorry for her, almost got with my life so calm and happy. I felt ready to start dating. I wasn't desperate to find a husband. I was happy on my own. But I joined a hiking group to meet people. There, I met a man named David. He was a quiet, kind landscape architect. He wasn't impressed by money or status. He liked me for my sense of humor and my love for the outdoors. It was the first healthy relationship I'd ever had. There was no drama, no games. We were just two people who enjoyed each other's company. I didn't feel the need to hide any part of my life or my family's situation from him. He knew the whole story and supported my boundaries. Almost a year to the day after the infamous dinner, my parents invited me and David over for a meal at their condo. Chloe and her family were there too. I was nervous, but David held my hand. The dinner was normal, a little strained, but civil. My mother cooked. My dad talked about his job at the hardware store. He seemed prouder, more engaged. No one made any mocking comments. No one laughed at me. Towards the end of the night, my mom brought Ed a cake. "It's not for a birthday," she said, looking at me. "It's just to say thank you for helping us when I was sick and for everything." It wasn't a full reconciliation, but it was a true start. After 2 years of dating, David proposed. I, of course, said yes. Planning the wedding was a test of our new family dynamic. I paid for it myself. I invited my parents and Chloe. My parents came, and they were genuinely happy for me. Chloe came, but she was cold and distant. She spent most of the reception complaining to anyone who would listen, but I didn't care. I was marrying a wonderful man, surrounded by my real friends, in a beautiful dress I had bought with my own money. I was happy, truly, completely happy. 3 years after getting married, I gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl. My parents were overjoyed. They became the loving, doting grandparents I always wished they could be. They respected my parenting choices and never overstepped. The therapy and the enforced boundaries had worked. They had a new relationship with me, one based on mutual respect, not dependence. Chloe was a different story. She was bitter that my children were getting so much attention. The rivalry was still there, but it had no power over me anymore. The real revenge wasn't in their struggle. It wasn't in seeing them have to downsize or get jobs. The real revenge was my happiness. It was my beautiful, peaceful home with a husband who adored me. It was my healthy, happy children. It was my successful career. It was the investment portfolio that was growing steadily. It was the freedom to live my life on my own terms. They had mocked me for what I didn't have, and in doing so, they pushed me to create a life so full and so rich that their opinion no longer mattered. Last year, Chloe showed up at my door again. This time, she wasn't angry. She was broken. She and Mark were getting a divorce. He was tired of the constant financial pressure and her refusal to take responsibility for her own life. She had no job skills, and she was about to lose her house. She asked me for a loan. I looked at my sister, the one who had everything I was supposed to want, and I saw a hollow, unhappy woman. I said no to the loan, but I did offer her something else. I offered to pay for her to go back to school and get a degree. I offered her the same hand-up I had given my parents, not a handout. It came with conditions. She had to see a therapist, and she had to get a part-time job. She was too desperate to refuse. Chloe is now in community college, studying to be a dental hygienist. It's hard for her, but for the first time, she's doing something for herself. My parents babysit my kids twice a week, and they have a wonderful relationship. They are living within their means and are actually happier for it. The constant anxiety about money is gone because they are in control of their own finances. Our family isn't perfect. We still have issues, but now we have tools to deal with them. We have respect, and that's my story. The night my family mocked me was the worst and best night of my life. It was the night I found my voice. I learned that you can love your family without being their doormat. That setting boundaries is not selfish. It's necessary. And sometimes the best revenge is not a loud, dramatic explosion. It's a quiet, steady life built on your own terms. It's waking up every morning happy, peaceful, and free. They thought they were laughing at my empty life, but they were the ones with empty hearts and empty wallets. I filled my life with love, purpose, and strength. And that, Arthur, is something no one can ever take away from me. End of Maya's story. Return to Arthur. Arthur wiped a tear from his eye as he finished telling the story. The young woman sitting across from him was silent, a look of awe on her face. So what happened to Maya? She asked. Arthur smiled. She and David just celebrated their 10th anniversary. The twins are in 2nd grade, and she's the CEO of her own marketing firm now. She still comes in for coffee sometimes. She always says the same thing. Never be afraid to walk away from a table that no longer respects you. Your seat is waiting for you at a better one.